Hey there, I'm Amy from thecrazycraftlady.com. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm doing something that I haven't done in quite a while, and that is a roundup of craft tutorials. So all of these tutorials involve dollar store wall decals. So Dollar Tree usually has like a pretty impressive selection of faux wall tiles, which I've crafted with before, peel and stick wallpaper, and wall decals. Lots of fun varying patterns and styles and colors to choose from. And I've, up until recently, haven't done a lot of crafting with the wall decals. You would think, oh, you just stick them on your wall, but there's a whole lot more that you can do with them. And I have 10 crafts to share with you. So without wasting any more time, let's get making. Grab one of these little wooden crates from the Dollar Plus section at Dollar Tree. We're going to give it a major facelift using some paint sticks and a wall decal. Okay, so I started with this little wood crate. I did not love like the cutout design on the side. I wanted a more like traditional slatted crate look. So I decided to create my own with paint sticks. I love crafting with paint sticks. They come in like a 10 or 12 pack from Home Depot for like $1.29 or some ridiculous price. They're super cheap and they're great for all sorts of crafting. So I just laid 4 paint sticks on top of the side of my crate. Sorry if you have to see the top of my head here. And then I just made a mark where like they needed to be cut. And then I grabbed my miter shears, which are perfect for cutting thicker wood like this. And I just cut all of them down to size. I feel like with paint sticks, like either I get it cut in the first try or I have to flip the paint stick around 4 different times and it's like never anything in between. So some of them cut real easy and some of them are a little trickier, but just 90-degree angle, cut all 4 of them and then set them in place. And then because I wanted to move on quickly with the next step of this project, I used a combination of hot glue and wood glue. The hot glue provides immediate hold so I can keep crafting. The wood glue provides a more permanent hold for the long term. So just like a line of dots of wood glue and then add like 2 or maybe 3 dots of hot glue and then set each little paint stick in place. I repeated this on the other side, and then I grabbed some of these flower wall decals from Dollar Tree that I'm pretty obsessed with. I only wanted to use like the purplish bluish hydrangeas here, not the pink ones, so I used 2 packs. And I just peeled away one of these jumbo flower decals and I set it in place on one side of the crate, smoothed it down, just use my fingers, super easy. And then it's time to trim this. So I used a spare paint stick and my pen blade. You could use like a finger point blade or whatever, and just use the paint stick as your guide with your blade, and then just cut the excess piece, and then also cut a line between each of the 4 paint sticks. So there's 3 different seams that need to be cut. I just think it like makes this project look a little bit more finished when you can see the lines in the decal that line up with the lines in the wood slats. It makes it look more like it was painted on, not like people can't tell it's a decal, but it just looks like a little bit more realistic, a little more legit, I guess. And then on the ends with the handles, some of the smaller decals I just kind of pressed into place there. And then I repeated that on the other 2 sides, so I covered all 4 sides. Now, I'm not sure where I'm going to display this. I think I may end up using it like as a centerpiece on my coffee table in the summertime, but for now it's on the shelf in my craft room, keeping with my theme of I really like to do thrifted and upcycled projects for storage. So this goes on the shelf with my most used craft supplies, so they're right there, visually accessible and easy to grab. And so I just put my spray paint cans in this wood crate for now. It's functional and pretty to look at. Next up, I grabbed one of these wooden wreath bases from Dollar Tree and I just painted it white. And then once that white paint had dried, I just cut out a tracing onto like really thick cardboard or cardstock. This was the back of a pad of like watercolor paper. I just needed a backing to make my little wall hanging. And then this is optional, but I painted one side dark gray just because I wanted the back to look like finished and nice. So just like a solid color of dark gray chalk paint, or really any color that you like. And then I traced again onto a piece of scrapbook paper that was like wood pattern, like a wood plank scrapbook paper, and I cut that out as well. And then just applied a nice coat of Mod Podge to the other side of that cardboard backing that I cut out. And then just used my smoothing tool to smooth the paper over the Mod Podge. And then I just grabbed some more of those same exact wall decals from my wood crate project. I really, really love hydrangeas, can you tell? And I just kind of set some of those decals in place. A couple of them kind of hung over the edge, so I just trimmed them away with scissors, easy peasy. And then hot glued that ring right onto that cutout circle. And then I went a step further. I honestly thought about stopping here. I thought this would make a really cute like tray, but I decided to go a step further and I grabbed my handy dandy little half wood balls. I think I'm on like my third order, and this is like the last of what I have of them. So I'm about to make a fourth order on Amazon. I've used these in so many different craft projects. But I just took wood glue and a paintbrush and added them all the way around the edge of my little door hanger. And then I took one of these little cardboard welcome signs from Dollar Tree, painted it in navy blue, and hot glued it right in place. And then embellished everything with a little bit of faux greenery and a ribbon tied into a simple bow. And then to hang at my door hanger, I just flipped it over and doubled up some twine, tied a knot on each end, and then hot glued those two knots right to the back of my door hanger. Easy peasy. I think this is kind of like more of a spring summer look, but I think it's a cute little door hanger, and it's actually going to hang on the inside of my craft room door because I love it so much. Grab one of these little cardboard skinny wall hanging signs from Dollar Tree and some wall decals with a phrase of your choice. I'm going to make a quick little craft for our living room. So these little wood signs come from Dollar Tree in a couple different finishes. I think I've seen them like in wood, in white, as well as in black. The day that I went shopping, they only had these black planked looking signs. So I went with the black one and I decided just to paint it to make it work for my style. So I just used some white chalk paint. This is just regular white Rust-Oleum chalk paint and kind of a dry brush technique. So I just used a scrap of cardboard to kind of brush off excess paint before I painted on my sign. And then I just kind of went back and forth all across the sign until I covered a good amount of that black finish. Just because the decal that I'm going to put on this sign is black, so I tried to cover enough of that black finish that the decal would be able to be seen. So once I had gone through with the white chalk paint, I didn't even let it fully dry. I just went in with some kind of like teal, like a light robin's egg color chalk paint. So the white was just white Rust-Oleum chalk paint. But this teal color is Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint in the color Sage. It's one of my favorite, absolute favorite chalk paint colors, and I get it at Hobby Lobby. So just more dry brushing back and forth until I had achieved kind of like the weathered wood look finish that I wanted. You can always come back and add more white paint to get everything looking just the way you want it. And then there's those two little holes on the top of the sign from where the hanger was that I wanted to cover up. So to do that, I took two paint sticks and my handy dandy miter shears, and I just cut the paint sticks to length. Now I keep paint sticks in my craft stash because I love to craft with them. If you don't have paint sticks, a jumbo wooden craft stick would do just as well. And then to mimic the look of the sign, I painted the cut paint sticks with black chalk paint. I let the black completely dry, and then I came in with the white and the teal chalk paint and recreated that weathered finish that was on the wood signs. And then I just grabbed my hot glue gun and I hot glued the cut popsicle stick to each end of the sign. Obviously, there's only holes on one side of the sign, but I didn't want it to look lopsided, so I did a little plank on either end, and it kind of made the sign look a little bit more finished. And then this wall decal from Dollar Tree, our family's gathering place. It was just black letters on a clear backing, and it's kind of like a matte finish. So I just peeled the whole thing off. I centered it right onto my sign and I smoothed it down super, super easy. And then this is actually going to go in our living room because I kind of like this phrase, and I have this bookshelf. I'm trying to have a minimal mom summer here, but this bookshelf I absolutely love tinkering with and playing with and rearranging all of my stuff. So this little sign is going to sit there and cover our family photo albums. But that's it, a super easy hanging wall sign. You could easily add like hanging hardware or command strips to the back if you wanted to hang this on a gallery wall. So grab a couple of these 8x10 Crafter Square stretched canvases. We're gonna do a reverse canvas craft, which is nothing new on my channel, but if you haven't seen this technique before, it's super easy. All you do is you start on the back of the canvas and I use a pen blade, you can use a razor blade, but just very, very carefully score that canvas on the outside of that row of staples. I don't know if Dollar Tree has changed their canvases or what, but this one seemed like it had like more staples, and this gave me a lot harder of a time than I normally have with dollar store canvases. So I don't know if maybe this was just like a weird batch, but there was like a lot of extra fabric in the corners, and it just took me a lot longer to cut everything away. Normally this isn't an issue, but for whatever reason, this is what it was and I made it work. It just took me like 5 extra minutes, not a big deal. But just cut away all of that canvas until you've completely removed that stretched canvas from that wooden frame, and then you have a cute little wooden frame that you can fill in. So from there, I just took a pair of scissors and cut that canvas down to size. So there's a little fold or a ridge where the canvas was folded over that wooden frame. So just trim right on the inside of that line and make sure that the canvas fits right on the back of that wooden frame without any extra fabric poking over the edges. So then from there, I just grabbed some Mod Podge. So I used Mod Podge matte for this project, and I applied a solid coat of Mod Podge to the entire canvas. And here's why. Yes, I know I only needed to Mod Podge the decal, but I wanted a consistent finish on my project. And I knew that if I didn't Mod Podge the entire canvas, I would have like differences in finish or in sheen between areas that were Mod Podged and areas that were just the canvas. So do a solid coat of Mod Podge across that whole canvas and then let it dry. From there, you want to take hot glue and hot glue all the way around the back of that little wooden frame on the staple side. So I left all the staples in because I was way too lazy to remove all those staples. If you want to do it, have at it, but I did not have the energy for that. So just hot glue and then add the piece of canvas fabric that has one coat of Mod Podge on it, smooth everything out, and then you've got this nice cute little blank slate that you can fill with, in this case, wall decals. So these are kind of modern. I tend to be more like cottage farmhouse in my home, but in my kids' bedrooms and bathrooms, I tend to be a little more modern. And since these were for the kids' bathrooms, I went with these decals. I think they're super cute and super fun. But just add a quick coat of Mod Podge. And because we did that first base coat, you don't have to get all the way to the edges. So it's a lot easier. Just do like a nice even coat of Mod Podge there, and then smooth that decal right into place. The reason why I didn't do this before I hot glued the canvas fabric on is I wanted to make sure that I got my decal like perfectly centered. And then I just sealed it with another coat of Mod Podge. Set everything aside to dry, and I made another one with a second wall decal. There were 4 in this packet, so I only used 2. And then hung these up on the bathroom wall in our upstairs bathroom with some command hooks. Way too easy, and I think this just kind of adds a cute little like pop of color. a fun modern little wall accent in this space. I'm super happy with how this craft turned out, and it was super easy to make. All right, it's time for Reverse Canvas 2.0. For this one, I use some canvas type wall decor. So not artist canvas, but just like square wall decor canvas. And because this had, the frame was more of like a cardstock material, like a fiberboard than a wood, I was actually able to pull the staples out with relative ease compared to my normal reverse canvases where I leave the staples in because it's just too hard to get them out. But I just used like a pair of tweezers because my pliers made their way into my son's fishing tackle box, never to be seen again. So you just use like pliers, tweezers, whatever you got to kind of peel away all of that canvas and rip out all those staples so that you separate the frame from the canvas. And then you can very easily just trim that canvas down to size. So just trim right inside that little fold along the edge of the canvas so that it fits nicely on the back of that frame, and then hot glue in place. So I like to hot glue half, smooth it down, make sure it's nice and tight and smooth, and then hot glue the other half down. You may have to like peel it back and redo it a few times to get it exactly even. And then from here, I painted the whole thing. So normally when I do my reverse canvases, I paint or stain the frame separately and then add the canvas back. Here, I went for like a full, like solid color look. So the inside canvas and the frame, all the same color. Now, depending on what type of craft paint you use, you may have to do 2 coats. Like on this one, I think I got away with 1, but I think some of my lighter colors I had to do 2 coats. It just depends. And then I repeated it with 3 other colors. So I used pastel colors that kind of matched the colors in these little potted plant wall decals. And then I went back with matte Mod Podge and I did a solid coat over the whole back of the canvas. Like with so many of these projects, I like to do a solid coat, even if it's like on areas that aren't going to have decals on them, because I like to have a smooth, even finish. And then just peel a decal off, smooth it into place. Once again, I just used my fingers. I didn't use a smoothing tool or anything. I just smoothed it down and then added a coat of Mod Podge right over the decal. Easy peasy. And then, like I said, I did these in 3 other colors to coordinate with the 3 other decals to make a little mini gallery wall with decals. So I just used 3 tin cans here. They are from my recycle bin. I don't know, you guys, I don't know if I like an upcycle craft more or if I like a dollar store craft more. I think they're probably my top 2. So I just used some Decor white chalk paint to prime these cans. You could take them outside and spray paint them, but I find it just kind of easiest just for me to stay in my craft room and just do a quick coat of white chalk paint. And then once that had dried, because I did not have any yellow chalk paint, because I don't use yellow a ton, I just went over this with Deco Art Americana acrylic craft paint in the color Buttermilk, which I am quickly becoming a big fan of, this buttermilk paint color. I find that on a project like this, if you do a base coat with chalk paint, you can get away with doing a coat of acrylic craft paint on top of it because the chalk paint has such great adhesion. So I just did a solid coat of this light yellow on top of the white paint on all 3 tin cans. I let it completely dry and then I added my little decals. So because this was like a really long skinny decal, I cut it into different sections that I then applied to the tin can. And to do that, I used some Mod Podge in a matte finish, which is typically my go-to finish for all of these craft projects. I don't love shiny surfaces, and the matte finish photographs better for you guys when I share pictures on the blog or on Instagram. So just a quick coat of matte Mod Podge and then smooth the decal right over the tin can. I just used my finger on this, no smoothing tool, nothing crazy. And then I just went back over that decal with a solid coat of Mod Podge, And when I do paint and Mod Podge crafts, even I Mod Podge even the surfaces that don't have like my decal on it because I want an even finish across my whole project. So just a coat all the way around the tin can and then set that aside to dry. I did 3 tin cans for this project. And these are actually going to be put to use in my craft room, kind of helping me keep my scissors and paintbrushes organized. I really like using, thrifted and upcycled storage solutions in my craft room. It makes me really happy. And I'm glad I have a new little craft supply to put on display. So I started with this little silver serving tray from Dollar Tree, and I was going to paint it, so I just took some rubbing alcohol and I cleaned it up really well. I wanted to make sure that my chalk paint had the best possible chance of sticking. And then to remove the label, I just grabbed my heat gun, heated that label up a little bit, and then peeled the label away. It did leave some like sticky residue on the back, so I just cleaned it up with a bit of Goo Gone, and I was in business. Then I used some Home Decor chalk paint in the color Sage, although it's like more of like a robin's egg blue. I'm pretty obsessed with this paint color actually. And I just gave a quick coat of chalk paint to the whole serving tray. Take your time and really get in all the nooks and crannies on like the ridged edge of that serving tray there. This Dollar Tree one had quite a bit of detail, so you have to go like back and forth in all directions to really get full coverage. But I ended up doing 2 coats. So I did first coat, let it dry for about an hour, and then I came back and did another coat. And then Dollar Tree has these jumbo flower wall decals in 2 packs. So you get 2 of them for $1.25. And I just cut one of them down to size. So I just trimmed a little bit off from 2 of the edges so that it would fit on the tray. And then you have to kind of like cut in the corner a little curve so that it will match the curve of the tray. And then from there, all you have to do is just peel that sticker away and smooth it down onto the tray. You could also use like a free printable if you can like print out a picture of a flower, or you could use like an image from a calendar, or even like a piece of scrapbook paper and just Mod Podge it on if you can't find these particular wall decals, but I think they're pretty common at Dollar Tree. And then I just came in with some more chalk paint in this mossy green color, and I kind of distressed the edges a little bit. So if you're using a different color flower decal, like you can use different color paints, whatever makes you happy, but just a very, very dry brush with the tiniest amount of paint on it. And then you just kind of like add, a little bit of paint in various spots around the edges. And then, like I said, you could do Mod Podge, you could seal it with Mod Podge, but I just used this Rust-Oleum Satin Clear spray. I gave it like 2 quick coats outside, and then that was it. And here's my finished little serving tray, super cute for displaying jewelry or small knickknacks. For this craft, I just started with some spaghetti sauce jars from Aldi. I really like these, like not because it's my favorite spaghetti sauce, but because I really like the jars. So I collected a few of them. And then I actually just left, like, there was some sticky adhesive left. I just left it on because it was going to be covered by my wall decal anyway. These come in a 2-pack from Dollar Tree, so 2 big flowers, just cut one in half. And then you can lay it right onto your jar. So like I said, there was a little bit of residue. I just stuck the flower right over it. If you wanted to use Goo Gone to make sure your jar was completely clean, you're welcome to do that. But just smooth that half decal right over the jar. You'll notice I left about 1 inch at the bottom. So the cut side of that decal was right in line with that ridge at the bottom of the jar. And then I just decided to cover the bottom of the jar with twine using some hot glue. So you want to use like the tiniest dabs of hot glue and add hot glue frequently. So for the first, I don't know, like 5 or 10 rows, yeah, maybe 10 or 12 rows, it's really easy, right? Because it's kind of a straight surface. So you can just kind of keep putting a dab on the back of the jar of hot glue and then wind the twine around and keep going. But eventually it gets a little bit more complicated as that jar continues to curve down and inward. So pretty quickly you're going to have to, and I find it's best to do this early on, otherwise you'll end up with a bunch of slipping twine and it's a pain. So every, I don't know, half a turn, 2/3 of a turn, just add a tiny little dab of hot glue. But the thing is, you don't want it to stick out and poke between the rows of twine. So I found it easiest to do the tiniest little line of hot glue right up against the piece of twine that was already there, and then stick your new row of twine right up against it. So you're wrapping and kind of pushing down towards the top of the jar at the same time. I found it easiest to either hold your mason jar upside down on your craft table, or on one of mine, I actually just held the top of the mason jar like against my body so that I could see, looking straight down at the jar, where any gaps were between my twine. But there you go. You just keep working your way until you get kind of towards the bottom of the mason jar and you're tired of hot gluing and you've burned your fingers and you decide to call it a day. So just then cut off that tail end of the twine and you're in business. And then this next step is totally optional, but I decided to paint the lids of my jar because this bright red was obviously not going to go with my pink flower decals. So I just used Waverly chalk paint from Walmart in the color Fern. I don't use this very often, but it paired really well with the decals. But use whatever color paint you want, chalky finish paint or spray paint even. I was able to get pretty good coverage with 2 coats, and chalk paint dries quickly, so I was able to get this done in no time flat. And then, like I said, I made 3 jars total that I just kind of grouped together. This would make a great like little centerpiece on a spring or summer table, or add it to a bookshelf or a mantle. I filled 1 jar with wooden beads and the other 2 with just some faux greenery. Super, super, super easy. All right, so for this craft, I went back to my handy dandy wooden paint sticks and I decided to make a sign out of them. So I just took my miter shears, and on 11 of these paint sticks, I cut the handle off. So the part that has the little divot in it, I cut that right off. And I actually found a use for them because I always cut the handles off my paint sticks and I'm like, I'm going to save these and eventually do something with them one day. Oh no, I'm not going to be crafting with these. Our brand new puppy Teddy loves chomping on paint sticks, and so I think he's claimed all 11 paint stick handles from this craft project, and I think he's a pretty happy camper. But once I had those little handles cut off, I just lined them, all the cut pieces up, all 11 of them, like laid them flat on my work surface, just kind of eyeballed even spacing. And then I took 2 regular paint sticks and I glued them to the back. So I just took wood glue and applied dabs all in like a row on one side of my little paint stick stack there. And I set it in place, and then I added the dots on the other side and added a paint stick. And then I just kind of left everything to sit there until the wood glue had dried. And then super easy, I got this little wash your hands and say your prayers decal, and because it was on like a clear backing, I was able to just kind of like cut everything out, set it in place, and then just smooth all those decals right into place. This was probably the easiest of all the craft projects in this compilation video, and I think it turned out really cute. And last but not least, happy birthday, America. Okay, and last but not least, I made a project for my daughter who is so much like me, loves her to-do lists, and she loves a good clipboard. So I decorated a clipboard for her. And so I just took a Dollar Tree clipboard, I took some masking tape, and I covered up the hardware at the top. And then I applied a quick coat of paint. So I used teal and white at the top, teal at the bottom, and I kind of blended it into an ombre pattern. Looking back, as this dried, a lot of paint soaked in, so I had to do a second coat. So if I had this to do over again, I would probably just do a base coat of white, and then once that dried, add the ombre pattern on top. And then once that paint had dried, I just took some of these mermaid wall decals and I applied them. So I normally use matte Mod Podge, but for this one I used hard coat. just because I wanted a more durable finish. And so I did a solid coat on the entire clipboard. And then I just smoothed my decals into place. Kind of tricky with the mermaid because they were like larger decals and kind of more intricate and detailed, but it worked out. But I just smoothed the decals right into place and then applied another coat of Mod Podge right on top. And I actually did the front and the back so she can like enjoy the clipboard from both sides. But this could easily be recreated with any decal or paint color of your choice. The possibilities on this truly are endless for this craft. But there you have it, 10 dollar store wall decal crafts. This was a long video. If you're still around, thanks for hanging out until the very end. I do hope you enjoyed all of these craft tutorials. Until next time, happy making.